You are watching Mindcrafters, and this is our Overthinking and Amp Anxiety series. If you have missed previous videos, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. In today's video, we'll explore the psychological and emotional reasons why we replay conversations in our heads, the lasting impact it has on our mental health, and most importantly, how you can break free from this exhausting cycle. Understanding the science behind this behavior is the first step to overcoming it. But beyond just the why, we'll also give you practical tools to help you stop overthinking and reclaim your peace of mind. The mental health impact. Replaying conversations can seem harmless at first, just a passing thought or a momentary fixation. But over time, it can take a serious toll on your emotional and psychological well-being. According to the American Psychological Association, APA, rumination is a core symptom of many mental health conditions, including anxiety and depression. It can keep your stress levels elevated, prevent you from living in the present moment, and leave you emotionally drained. Worse still, studies show that excessive rumination is linked to increased levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, which can lead to chronic health problems like heart disease and insomnia. In statistics on anxiety and overthinking, a 2022 global study by the World Health Organization, WHO, revealed that over 264 million people worldwide suffer from anxiety disorders, and a significant portion of these individuals report excessive rumination and the inability to stop replaying conversations. In the US alone, about 40 million adults are affected by anxiety, and a major factor contributing to this statistic is the constant mental cycle of replaying past conversations. 2. Cognitive behavioral patterns. Research from Harvard Medical School suggests that our brains have a tendency to overanalyze social interactions due to the fear of social judgment. The brain's prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for processing social and emotional information, becomes overactive when we experience social anxiety, leading to the obsessive replaying of conversations. Why we replay conversations? But why do we keep doing this? Why does our mind cling to a specific conversation even when we know it's unlikely to change? The answer lies in the brain's natural tendency to resolve uncertainty and gain control over potentially embarrassing or uncomfortable situations. When we replay a conversation in our heads, we're subconsciously trying to rewrite history, seeking a better or more acceptable version of the interaction. This behavior is often driven by a fear of rejection, social embarrassment, or a need for validation. According to Dr. Susan Nolan Hoeksema, a clinical psychologist and author of the book Emotion Regulation, 2015, rumination serves as a way for people to feel more in control, yet it often leads to the opposite: heightened anxiety and depression. Furthermore, studies in neuroscience have shown that our brains can become stuck in this cycle due to a failure in the cognitive control network, which typically helps us filter out irrelevant or harmful thoughts. This leads to a feedback loop of obsessive thinking, where the brain keeps returning to the same conversation, even if no new information can be gleaned from it. The cost of rumination. A 2023 report from the National Institute of Mental Health, NIMH, revealed that 60% of people with social anxiety disorder report replaying conversations to an extreme extent. Additionally, rumination is associated with increased levels of depression and can severely affect one's ability to concentrate and make decisions. You don't have to be a victim of your own thoughts. The real opportunity lies in how we respond to them. Dr. Martin Seligman, author of Learned Optimism, 1990, which explores the link between mindset and mental health. So, if you've ever found yourself mentally trapped in a conversation you had hours or even days ago, know that you're not alone. Replaying conversations is a deeply ingrained pattern, and while it's natural to have moments of reflection, when it becomes habitual, it can drain your energy and peace of mind. But don't worry, by understanding the psychology behind this behavior, and by using a few practical techniques, you can break free from the cycle of overthinking and regain control of your mental and emotional health. Understanding the problem, the nature of replaying conversations. To truly understand how to stop replaying conversations in your head, we need to first understand why it happens in the first place. At its core, replaying conversations is a form of cognitive rumination. It's the mental habit of repeatedly thinking about the past, often focusing on a conversation or event that made us feel uncertain, vulnerable, or judged. When we replay conversations, we're not merely remembering them. We're revisiting the emotional and psychological impact those interactions had on us. We tend to fixate on what was said, what could have been said better, or the way the conversation made us feel. According to Dr. Daniel Kahneman, Nobel laureate and author of Thinking, Fast and Slow, 2011, our brains are wired to focus on negative experiences more than positive ones. This phenomenon is known as the negativity bias, and it can make conversations seem more consequential than they actually were. Psychological roots. But what's going on inside the brain when we replay conversations? To answer this, we need to take a closer look at the brain's response to social situations. The amygdala, which is responsible for processing emotions, plays a key role in how we react to social interactions. When we experience a stressful or anxiety-inducing conversation, the amygdala signals to the brain that something needs to be processed and resolved. This leads to a heightened emotional response and triggers the fight or flight response in some cases. If the brain doesn't have a chance to process and resolve these emotions, it may turn to rumination as a coping mechanism. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for logical thinking and decision-making, may attempt to replay the conversation in an effort to find closure. Understanding the cycle. It's important to note that rumination isn't just about replaying conversations. It's also about the emotional charge that gets attached to them. The more emotionally charged a conversation is, the more likely it is to get stuck in your mind. If left unchecked, the cycle of replaying conversations can become self-reinforcing. For example, if you replay a conversation where you think you made a mistake, you'll likely feel anxious about it, and the anxiety will make it harder to stop the rumination. This only increases the likelihood of it happening again. The science behind overthinking conversations. Overthinking is not just a habit, it's rooted deeply in the brain's way of processing emotions, memories, and social interactions. To understand why we replay conversations, we need to explore the neurological and psychological mechanisms that are triggered when our minds get stuck on a specific event. At the core of this behavior is the prefrontal cortex, the brain's command center for decision-making, problem-solving, and emotional regulation. This area is responsible for rational thought, and when something doesn't sit right emotionally, it tries to make sense of it. It can't let go until it finds a resolution, which often means it will replay the conversation, overanalyze details, and seek answers that it believes are missing. Memory and overthinking. Memory, especially emotional memory, plays a significant role in the way we replay conversations. Research shows that our memories are not perfect, particularly when emotions are involved. The brain tends to distort memories to fit its narrative. A 2018 study by the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, found that when a person experiences an emotionally charged event, their memory of the event becomes selective. The brain tends to focus on certain details, often negative, while disregarding other neutral or positive aspects of the conversation. For example, you may remember the exact wording of something you said that you later regretted, but forget the positive feedback you received earlier in the conversation. This skewed version of reality leads to overthinking, as the mind obsessively replays these emotional memories and attempts to resolve the perceived mistake or missed opportunity. Furthermore, our memories are not static. They are malleable and can be reconstructed every time we recall them. Dr. Elizabeth Loftus, a renowned cognitive psychologist, emphasizes in her work on memory that when we repeatedly think about an event, we inadvertently alter our memories, making them more vivid or distressing than they originally were. This phenomenon is especially noticeable in situations involving social anxiety, where the brain focuses on perceived social missteps and amplifies them. The role of stress hormones. Overthinking isn't just a mental process, it also has a physical component. When we replay a conversation in our minds, we can activate the body's fight or flight response, which releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones prepare the body to either confront a threat or flee from it. But in the case of overthinking, the threat is psychological, often related to social judgment or the fear of saying something wrong. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, plays a key role in this. Research from the Harvard Medical School suggests that prolonged cortisol exposure, like the kind caused by chronic overthinking, can impair memory and increase anxiety. When cortisol levels remain high due to rumination, the brain becomes more sensitive to stress and anxiety triggers, making it harder to disengage from the mental cycle. Moreover, adrenaline is responsible for the physiological feelings of tension, increased heart rate, and a heightened state of alertness. These responses, though useful in real-life threat situations, become counterproductive when overthinking a conversation. Instead of helping you find clarity, adrenaline heightens your emotional state and keeps you stuck in the loop of anxiety. Social and evolutionary perspectives. From an evolutionary perspective, overthinking may have once served a survival function. In primitive times, our ancestors had to constantly evaluate social interactions for threats, whether from rival groups or predators. Overanalyzing social situations could help them assess risks and avoid harm. However, in modern society, this once useful strategy has become maladaptive. The constant evaluation of social interactions has been replaced with a heightened sense of social anxiety and perfectionism. According to a 2019 study by the University of Cambridge, people today are more likely to experience social anxiety because of the pervasive presence of social media, which amplifies the fear of judgment and comparison. The mind, once focused on physical survival, is now preoccupied with maintaining social acceptance and minimizing perceived failure. This shift in focus has resulted in a rise in overthinking conversations, as individuals obsess over minor details of social exchanges, attempting to maintain an image of perfection. According to Dr. Daniel Kahneman, Nobel laureate and author of Thinking, Fast and Slow, 2011, he said, "Our minds are much better at remembering and focusing on negative things than positive ones." This bias often leads to obsessive thinking, where we magnify the perceived flaws of our actions. The negative feedback loop. Once overthinking sets in, it becomes a negative feedback loop. The brain's attempts to resolve a perceived problem only amplify the anxiety and emotional stress. This leads to more rumination, more stress, and less mental clarity. As we continually replay conversations, we don't give ourselves the opportunity to process the experience and move forward. Instead, the cycle repeats itself, reinforcing the anxiety and self-doubt. According to Dr. Susan Nolan-Huxema, a psychologist and author of Emotion Regulation, 2015, rumination often results in deeper feelings of hopelessness and exhaustion, both of which further entrench the thought process. This feedback loop makes it harder to focus on anything else, leading to a sense of being mentally stuck. Practical techniques to stop replaying conversations. Ground yourself in the present moment. One of the most effective ways to break the cycle of overthinking is to practice mindfulness and ground yourself in the present moment. Instead of obsessing over the past conversation, mindfulness helps you reconnect with the here and now. Mindfulness is the art of being fully aware of your thoughts, feelings, and surroundings without judgment. According to Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn, a leading expert in mindfulness, mindfulness is the awareness that arises through paying attention, on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. When you catch yourself replaying a conversation, take a deep breath and consciously shift your focus to your current surroundings. The 5-4-3-2-1 grounding exercise is an excellent way to anchor yourself in the present moment. It involves using your senses to refocus. 5 things you can see. 4 things you can touch. 3 things you can hear. 2 things you can smell. 1 thing you can taste. This exercise helps bring your attention away from the mental loop of replaying conversations, allowing your brain to reset and break the cycle of rumination. 2. Cognitive behavioral techniques. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is a powerful tool to challenge and change the thought patterns that contribute to overthinking. CBT involves identifying cognitive distortions, unhelpful thinking patterns that distort reality. One of the most common distortions in overthinking is catastrophizing, where we blow a conversation out of proportion and assume the worst outcome. According to Dr. Aaron T. Beck, the founder of CBT, our thoughts shape our emotions, and our emotions shape our behavior. Here's a quick exercise. Write down the conversation or event you're obsessing over. Identify any catastrophic or negative thoughts about the conversation, e.g., they probably think I'm stupid. Challenge these thoughts by asking, is there concrete evidence to support this belief? What's the likelihood that the worst-case scenario will actually happen? By questioning and challenging these cognitive distortions, you can reduce their emotional impact and prevent the conversation from replaying in your mind. 3. Journal your thoughts. Journaling is an excellent tool for processing emotions and gaining perspective on what happened. Writing down your thoughts about the conversation allows you to externalize the feelings that are trapped in your mind. It provides clarity and helps you process the conversation from a more objective standpoint. If you're caught up in replaying a conversation, try the following. Write out the conversation exactly as it happened, without any edits or judgments. Then, rewrite the conversation from a neutral perspective, imagining how an outside observer would see it. This allows you to distance yourself from the emotional attachment you've placed on the event and view it more rationally. In fact, Dr. James Pennebaker, a psychologist who has conducted extensive research on the benefits of journaling, found that expressive writing can reduce anxiety and improve emotional processing by up to 20% after just a few sessions. 4. Limit your time for ruminating. Set boundaries on how long you allow yourself to ruminate. Give yourself permission to think about the conversation, but only for a set amount of time. A technique called rumination time can help you control how much mental space you dedicate to replaying conversations. Here's how to do it. Set a timer for 10 to 15 minutes. During this time, allow yourself to replay the conversation as much as you need. Once the timer goes off, stop thinking about it. Move on to another activity or focus your mind on something else. This technique prevents you from spiraling into excessive overthinking and provides a structured way to release the grip that the conversation has on your mind. Over time, this method can help train your brain to limit its attachment to past events. 5. Practice self-compassion. Be kind to yourself for having an imperfect conversation. Nobody is flawless, and that includes you. Overthinking often stems from a fear of making mistakes or being judged. When you realize that no one expects perfection, it becomes easier to let go of the need to replay every word. Practicing self-compassion is essential in breaking free from overthinking. According to Dr. Kristen Neff, a researcher and expert on self-compassion is a way of treating yourself with kindness when you make a mistake, rather than judging yourself harshly. Here are a few self-compassion exercises you can try. When you catch yourself replaying a conversation, say to yourself, "It's okay to make mistakes. I did my best in that moment." And treat yourself as you would treat a friend. Would you criticize them for a small misstep, or would you encourage them to let it go? By embracing self-compassion, you reduce the power that overthinking has over your emotional state. 6. Engage in physical activity. Physical activity is one of the most effective ways to break the cycle of overthinking. Exercise helps release endorphins, chemicals in the brain that promote feelings of well-being and reduce anxiety. When you engage in physical activity, especially activities that require focus, like yoga, running, or swimming, it helps redirect your mental energy from the conversation to the activity at hand. Dr. G.O.A.T, a psychiatrist and author of Spark, The Revolutionary New Science of Exercise and the Brain, 2008, explains that exercise not only boosts mood, but also improves cognitive function, allowing you to regain mental clarity and break free from rumination. Breaking the cycle of replaying conversations is possible. With the right strategies, you can regain control over your thoughts and reduce the emotional toll of overthinking. Why addressing the root cause is key. While it's important to implement strategies to stop replaying conversations, understanding and addressing the root causes behind the overthinking can make the process even more effective. Overthinking conversations is often a symptom of deeper issues, such as fear of judgment, low self-esteem, or perfectionism. While surface-level techniques like mindfulness or cognitive behavioral therapy can help break the cycle of rumination, they don't necessarily address the underlying emotional triggers that lead to overthinking in the first place. To truly overcome the habit of replaying conversations, it's important to dig deeper into why we're doing it. According to Dr. Brené Brown, a research professor at the University of Houston and author of The Gifts of Imperfection Tell to 10, we often seek perfection because we fear the vulnerability of being judged. We think that if we get everything right, we won't be criticized. This fear of judgment, whether real or imagined, can make every conversation seem high stakes, leading us to replay it obsessively in an effort to avoid embarrassment, rejection, or misunderstanding. The role of perfectionism. Perfectionism is a major driver of overthinking, especially when it comes to social interactions. People who struggle with perfectionism often feel the need to meet an idealized standard in everything they do, including conversations. They worry excessively about saying the wrong thing or being misunderstood. Dr. Thomas Curran, a leading researcher in perfectionism, states in his 2018 study published in the Psychological Bulletin that perfectionism is driven by an intense fear of failure and the belief that mistakes will lead to rejection or criticism. Fear of rejection and judgment. Another major root cause of overthinking conversations is the fear of rejection or judgment. Humans are hardwired to be social beings, and for many, the thought of being rejected or judged by others is profoundly distressing. According to Dr. Mark Leary, a leading social psychologist and author of The Curse of the Self, 2007, humans have a deep need to belong, and when we feel that we might be rejected or judged, our brains perceive it as a threat. Self-esteem and self-criticism. Overthinking is also tied to self-esteem. People with low self-esteem tend to be more self-critical, which increases the likelihood of replaying conversations. When your sense of self-worth is tied to external validation, it becomes easy to fixate on what others think of you. According to Dr. Kristen Neff, a leading researcher on self-compassion, in her book Self-Compassion, The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself, 2011, when we constantly seek validation from others and don't receive it, it leads to negative self-judgment, which reinforces overthinking. This negative cycle, where we criticize ourselves for every perceived social mistake, becomes a feedback loop that feeds into the desire to replay every conversation and ensure we are viewed positively. The role of childhood conditioning. Childhood conditioning plays a significant role in shaping our emotional responses to social interactions and overthinking. From an early age, many of us are taught to be perfectionistic, to seek approval, and to avoid conflict at all costs. If a child grows up in an environment where mistakes are harshly criticized or where approval is conditional, they are more likely to develop an anxious attachment style and a heightened fear of judgment. According to Dr. John Bowlby, a pioneer in attachment theory, early experiences of approval or rejection shape how we interact with others and how we manage social situations later in life. These early emotional lessons often lead to oversensitivity to social feedback, making every conversation feel like an emotionally charged event. According to Dr. Susan David, a psychologist and author of Emotional Agility, 2016, the struggle you're experiencing with your thoughts isn't the problem. The problem is your relationship with those thoughts. This means that while the thoughts themselves, like replaying conversations, might be automatic, our response to them, how we allow them to affect us, can be changed by shifting how we view and handle them. building confidence in social situations. Addressing these root causes requires a shift in how we view ourselves and our social interactions. 1. Challenge perfectionism. Rather than aiming for flawless interactions, focus on being authentic. No one expects perfection, and most people are far more concerned with how we make them feel than with the exact words we say. Give yourself permission to be imperfect. 2. Embrace vulnerability. Dr. Brené Brown teaches that vulnerability is a key element of building connection and emotional resilience. When we allow ourselves to be imperfect and authentic in conversations, we free ourselves from the grip of self-criticism. 3. Improve self-worth. Cultivate self-compassion and self-acceptance. The more you practice treating yourself with kindness and understanding, the less power overthinking will have in your life. Recognize that mistakes are part of being human, and they don't define your worth. Now let's summarize key points. In this video, we've taken a deep dive into why we replay conversations in our heads, and more importantly, how to stop it. We began by exploring the psychological and emotional roots of overthinking, from cognitive biases to the neurological processes that fuel the cycle of rumination. Overthinking is a complex issue involving both the mind and body, where the brain attempts to process unresolved emotions and anxiety. We also discussed how memory, especially emotionally charged memories, plays a significant role in amplifying the negative impact of replayed conversations. We've learned that the prefrontal cortex and amygdala work together to process and often over-amplify social interactions, making them seem more threatening or critical than they may have been. We also touched on the importance of addressing the underlying root causes of overthinking. Whether it's perfectionism, fear of judgment, low self-esteem, or early childhood conditioning, these emotional triggers often create the fertile ground for overthinking to grow. It's not just the act of replaying the conversation that caused harm, it's the emotional patterns that lead us to replay them in the first place. Practical techniques recap. We've explored several practical techniques to break the cycle of replaying conversations. Mindfulness and grounding techniques, such as the 5-4-3-2-1 exercise, can help anchor you to the present and reduce the grip that overthinking has on your mind. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT tools, including challenging distorted thoughts and reframing negative beliefs, offer a powerful way to interrupt the rumination process. Journaling can be a safe space to process your thoughts and gain perspective on social situations, making it easier to let go of conversations once they're written down. Setting boundaries on your rumination time, allowing yourself only a set period to think about the conversation, empowers you to regain control of your mental space. Self-compassion, as taught by experts like Dr. Kristin Neff, is essential in helping you recognize that mistakes are part of being human, and they don't need to define your worth. The importance of self-awareness and progress. While these techniques can significantly reduce overthinking, the most important part of the process is self-awareness. Recognizing when you're starting to replay a conversation in your head is the first step toward breaking the cycle. By becoming aware of the emotional triggers and thought patterns that fuel overthinking, you can interrupt the process before it takes over. It's not about achieving perfection in your social interactions or never overthinking again. It's about creating space to observe your thoughts and gently guide them in a healthier direction. Dr. Tara Brach, a psychologist and meditation teacher, emphasizes in her book Radical Acceptance, 2003, that the more we learn to accept our thoughts and emotions without judgment, the more we free ourselves from their control. By accepting that overthinking is a normal part of being human, but choosing not to let it define you, you empower yourself to regain control. Final encouragement? If you've ever found yourself stuck in the cycle of replaying conversations, know that you have the power to change this habit. It's a process, and it won't happen overnight. But with patience and practice, you can learn to quiet your mind and stop replaying conversations in your head. The key is to be compassionate with yourself. Stay committed to the techniques that work for you, and remember that your worth is not defined by any single conversation. Everyone makes mistakes, and every conversation is an opportunity for growth. You are watching Mindcrafters. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos on emotional healing, mental empowerment, and practical tips for overcoming overthinking. Let us know in the comments. What techniques have helped you stop replaying conversations? We'd love to hear from you.